Hello and welcome. I'm Annette Reeder from thebiblicalnutritionist.com. And today I have a special guest because so many of you have written in about the issues with postpartum and postpartum depression, postpartum blues, all of those issues that come about after having a baby. Well, sometimes it can be very severe. So I have a guest on today who's going to share with us her top 3 ways that she was able to overcome very severe postpartum issues. And I know these answers are going to help many of you. And if you know of someone who's going through this or who is pregnant, they might want to get ahead of it and watch this video. Thanks for letting me share with you God's recipe for excellent health. And today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how your health is so important and we need to take care of it. We're also going to talk about some specific supplements that work for this specific issue. So stay tuned. We have a lot to share with you. Let me introduce you to Heidi Giggly. Heidi, welcome so much to come into this program today. I'm so excited to have you on today. You have such an important topic for many young women to hear. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I remember when we met, it was at probably one of the swimming pools because we seem to meet in remote places in other countries because we always go on the same trips together because of what we have a general likeness for. And so it's always been a delight to get to know you. And yet when you told me your story about what changed in your life the most recently, besides having beautiful children, it was the overcoming severe postpartum issues. And your story is important for so many women to hear today. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll move into the top 3 ways you can overcome severe postpartum issues.
Sure. So I'm Heidi Gigley, and we live in Midwest Missouri. We have 3 wonderful children. They're all boys. I love to bake. Baking is, it's my hobby. It's what relaxes me. I love to read. I'm passionate about wellness, mental wellness in particular. We homeschool. My youngest is 2, but I homeschool my 2 older boys. They're 13 and 11, and we love the country life.
Well, I can tell because you just have that radiance about you that you're very satisfied in what God's brought you to do. So good for you. So tell me about your second pregnancy, because that's, I think, when you discovered the mental wellness help for that. Is that right?
It is. So I started to feel unwell partway through my pregnancy. At the time, I didn't recognize it as anxiety and depression. I just thought I wasn't feeling good. But looking back, it was the beginning of what I dealt with severely then in postpartum. So I started with being so anxious about everything. I was sure something was physically wrong with me. I would have heart palpitations. I would have bouts of just feeling just completely unlike myself. So I was just sure once I had Wyatt or I had Shane, that this would all go away and I would feel better. Well, once I had him, what I thought was bad just went from bad to very, very bad. I remember being probably 5 days postpartum and sitting in my living room, and my dad was there to see our new baby and just telling him I want to die. And I had no reason to have those feelings. Like, I had a beautiful family, a good marriage, financially we were stable, but I felt so, so awful inside. We went on to try so many things in the next 5 years. I was always very natural minded. So first I tried all the natural things that I knew of, that my family knew of. None of it worked like I thought it should have. So I went back to my doctor. I ended up going to 2 different psychiatrists. They eventually diagnosed me as having bipolar 2, which I never embraced that diagnosis because, first of all, it felt like a death sentence to me because I didn't know of anybody who had bipolar that got better. And also, how could just having a baby, I didn't understand how having a baby could all of a sudden put me from healthy, normal to bipolar. I was sure it was hormonal, like it had something to do with the changing hormones. So that just put me on a 5 years of hell, a journey. It was beyond difficult, but trying to find answers for what was wrong with me. And we did so many things in those 5 years. We spent so much money. We traveled to Mexico. We did extensive testing in Mexico. I went to the different counseling therapies, and never really found solid answers. The medication did not work. It most times gave me worse side effects than what I had been dealing with beforehand. Our marriage suffered very badly. I didn't think we would ever recover what we had had before. So, in a nutshell, you can put 5 years of heartbreak and difficulty into 5 minutes.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that and being transparent because that's how people are going to be able to relate to this story because they're in the same struggle and they're thinking, no one understands me. Everyone says it's just in my head. And there's just a lot of push away when people are dealing with that. I don't know what's up with you, but I'm just going to avoid you. And yet it's real. Now, some people think, okay, postpartum blues, it just lasts maybe 3 to 5 weeks max, but we're talking 5 years. And so, what did you go to first? How did you get out of this? What was your first takeaway, or however you want to call it? That's like, wait a minute, I actually can get healed of this. What was the first thing you realized?
Well, in the first probably 2 years, I was sure that there was some for pill or, something I could find to take that would make me better. So I spent hours and hours and hours online looking for answers, searching for something that I could take that would make me better. So after that proved fairly fruitless and we had tried so many things, then I became acquainted with the idea that, we're body, soul, and spirit. And so what affects one affects the other. And then I was so sure that if I could just get this right spiritually, that would make me better. It must be something I'm missing spiritually. And so then I pursued that path very, very hard for the next year or two. But what I realized then after those years, and after I found the supplements that made such a difference for me, but coming full circle, it has to be a combination of all three. We're body, soul, and spirit. And so to get truly well as a whole, we have to focus on the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. And that is what finally brought healing, body, soul, and spirit, is focusing on all three aspects.
That is so true. And what I've realized is each person is different as to which one has to take priority. Now, please understand, I'm not ever saying spirituality is ever a less priority. It is always on top. But there are times that we have to address the physical to get a change happening in the body so that we can actually relax into the spiritual change that needs to take place. Other times for some people, it's like, no, we need to address the spiritual first because there's something going on that needs to be addressed. And then they can work into the physical. So each person is different. And it doesn't put one as a priority over another. It's where are you at and what needs to be addressed first. And so we've covered this with other topics as well as how each person is going to need to start at a different point. So where did you start first?
So one thing to add to what you just said, you're so right, because I had learned all the things about how to think properly, how to have a healthy thought process, how to take every thought captive. But I would try so hard. Like I had just racing, obsessive thoughts all day long. And I would fight those thoughts and fight them and repent of them and try to, replace them. It was exhausting. And it wasn't until I found the nutrition that all of a sudden all the things I had learned about how to have healthy, it actually started to work. So that's what helped to calm my body and my brain to where everything else I had learned actually started to be something that I could use and that would give me results. So I forget what your question was.
No, that was a perfect answer that you just helped clarify what I shared. And so that was perfect. So let's start with number one. What were the supplements that you found and what made those work?
So the supplements that I found it was a trio of products that focused on healing the gut-brain axis. One of the products was called Mentabiotics, which has probiotics in it that they encourage the production of neurotransmitters in your brain. And what I didn't know, what I learned was that the neurotransmitters that we need for our brain to function properly, we actually make most of them in our gut. And so these products help to encourage that production so that um, our brain had what it needed to be stable, healthy, and functional.
Okay, so when you started the Mentibiotics, was there anything else that you used with it, or was it just that one solo product?
No, so I actually started with what was called the Fundamentals Pack. It had the Mentabiotics and then Mentasync and Mentafocus. So the gut-brain axis is all connected. So the Mentabiotics worked on the gut. The Mentafocus was more for brain health, like clarity and memory and just healthy brain function. And then the Mentasync, which I feel like is part of why these products are so effective, is because it addresses the pathway between your brain and your gut, which is called your axis. And that helped that pathway to work well. I
Yeah.
also used something called Mood Plus. And Mood Plus was simply an additional product that was a powerful combination of herbs to just help bring calmness to the nervous system.
Yeah, it totally does, especially with the ashwagandha blend that's in it. So you're so right on that.
Yeah.
What did you notice when you started taking them? And then how long did it take before you noticed something? Because you were willing to invest in a supplement, expecting something to happen. So how long did it take for you to start noticing it was working?
Well, this is a question I would feel bad to answer for the people that are really suffering and hoping for fast results, because for me, the results actually were not really fast. It it took me 5 months to see big changes. And that's, I've been working with these supplements for a lot of years since then. I believe it's been like 7 years now. And I know a handful of people that have taken that long to see results, but most see them much more quickly, especially with some of the new products that we now have available. Um, why I stuck with it, I'm not totally sure, because in the past I had tried many other things that, didn't work quickly. And so I was just so desperate for answers, but I did. But the first thing I just will never forget the day I was in my kitchen and I had extra kids over for the day. I was babysitting for a friend. So normally anything extra would have just, like, my stress resilience was so bad. So anything extra was just too much. And I had extra kids, so extra chaos in my house. And I remember standing in my kitchen and all of a sudden just hit me that my brain is completely quiet. Like, there are no racing horrible thoughts. There's, like, my brain was just, it was quiet. And I just felt so much exuberance in that moment and joy. Like, I felt good to be alive. And I'm sure those changes had been happening slowly, but when you live with yourself, you don't see the small changes until all of a sudden they are accumulative and it's one big change. Um, but that was the first day that I was like, wow, I am getting better. I feel so different. I'm actually happy to be here and to be alive.
Yeah, and I wasn't dealing with postpartum issues when I started using the
Mm.
antibiotics, but it was the same thing. For me, it was 3 months. And it was like a switch went off. And it's like, wow. My husband's like, what happened? I said, something just happened in my brain because I have totally changed my focus and I'm no longer having, like you said, the racing thoughts. I wasn't having racing
Mm.
thoughts. I wasn't like to that extreme, but still it's like, okay, I feel like I knew I was created to live.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Like I knew this is how it should be. I just have never experienced it before. And I'm so glad I stuck with it because like you were saying, most people, and there are times we all just like, give me a quick fix. I want it to work tomorrow or maybe within the next hour. And then we're like, okay, moving on to the next thing. We have this, what I call Google, go for Google, where we just like, oh, I'm just gonna keep going for the next Google thing. But yet when you stick with it, you get the healing effect in the microbiome, you get the healing effect through the vagus nerve into the brain cells, and sometimes there's a switch that has to take place, but there's also a rebuilding, there's a reconnecting. And I told my husband, I said, it feels like I got like little tingly things going on in my head. And Dr. Sean will tell you, you do. They're reconnecting.
Yeah.
They've been misfiring for so long, and they've been misconnecting, and now they're starting to reconnect. And so that's not an overnight aspirin effect. This is a rebuilding of the brain cells connecting again and being able to send the right signals so that you have these like, wow, I have resilience. I can handle a house full of kids. So that's really good. So I'm glad you stuck with it because I love your story. So what else did you do? So you did the antibiotics and the fundamentals, and then what was the second thing you did? And you've pretty much alluded to it, but let's go over that again. So we have the first thing, and for you, it was you needed to start with supplements to heal the microbiome. And then you've also alluded to the fact that you needed to change your ability to capture your thoughts. So how did that play into your recovery as well?
Well, like I've stated before, we're body, soul, and spirit. So what affects one affects the other. So what I learned is that every thought you think creates a chemical reaction in your body for good or for bad. So healthy thoughts create healthy reactions. Negative toxic thoughts create negative toxic reactions. And science can literally see the difference in those thoughts, the trees they make physically in your brain. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, I already know what you're talking about, so it makes perfect sense to
Okay,
me.
good.
But I think even those watching are understanding it too, because it's becoming more common knowledge to understand how the brain works. So yes, you're totally right.
Okay. So as I learned that, I just started to realize how important my thoughts were and to become very aware of them, which feeling awful for 5 years, you already are very aware how you feel, and um, you're very sensitive to the changes in feelings because, at least for myself, because I was so scared of, the days I'd feel worse. So I was very aware of my thoughts, but then I was very aware of how I was feeling, but then to become aware of the thoughts that are helping or hindering how I'm feeling, that was huge for me. And then to just learn how to, either when I would be feeling bad, sometimes as I started to get well, I could stop and say, okay, I don't feel good right now. And why is that? So I think back, okay, did something happen? Is that something I'm thinking? And very often it was something I had thought about, and it was a belief that I either needed to tell myself the truth, or if it was something I was worrying about, I needed to let it go, trust that God was going to take care of it, pray about it. But that was also pivotal in helping my brain create new pathways of thought, because years and years of depression and anxiety literally create physical pathways in your brain that are there. And so it takes time to recreate with intention the good pathways so that then, your thoughts naturally go along the good ones rather than the toxic ones.
Well said. Very well said. All right. And then number 3, what was the third thing that you did for healing?
So another thing that was so pivotal in healing, as far as the spiritual side, was just growing in a deeper understanding of who God is and how he feels about me. He loves us more than we could ever comprehend. And he wants us to be healthy and well. I'm convinced of that he doesn't desire for us to be sick and struggling and miserable. Like, that's not who he is. That's not who he created us to be. And so having a deeper and a growing understanding of who he is, how much he loves me, how much he's interested in my well-being, and just learning that I can trust him, 100% trust him. He's trustworthy. Even when, people will let us down and will hurt us, but God will always be faithful. And that was huge. And I'm still learning that. I don't think that's a once and done. I continue to grow in that even, 7 years later.
Yeah, so well said. All right. So you then had your third child. How was it different with your third child than it was your second?
It was redemption. My postpartum was amazing. I didn't know if I'd ever get to experience a healthy postpartum. I'd sit around a table full of women, and they'd talk about babies and having babies and postpartum, and I could just sit there and cry inside because I don't really remember My oldest was 18 months when I got pregnant, or no, when I had Shane, my second one. And those first few years of their life are pretty much blank to me because I don't remember them. It was just wiped out with how sick I was. And so to have a baby and to be able to enjoy him, like it almost felt like my first baby in some ways because I've just been present for all the moments and we have such a bond. God has restored the bond with my older kids too, more than I, thought maybe he'd be able to. But it's been wonderful. I really don't have adequate words to just describe how thankful I am to be able to have experienced a postpartum where I'm healthy. It's been amazing.
Yeah. No, your tears say it all. And so God is amazing. And there are times that we have to reach for supplements and other things for the healing. And I was thinking about the racing thoughts and capturing thoughts. And it's kind of like you've got caught up in this sea of people, like you're at some airport that's so totally packed, and you're trying to walk the opposite way with your luggage against all of these people who are in a mad dash to get to one airline.
Mhm.
And you can't just capture your thoughts in that moment when your thoughts are just like that. But when you're at the airport and maybe you're in a smaller airport, and maybe like you would be like at Springfield Airport or something like that, that's smaller, and there's not very many people around, and you can just easily go through, and then you can capture your thoughts. It's kind of like that. When it's racing around you, it's too hard. And so
Mhm.
knowing that the supplements actually came in and gave you a hand and helped you to calm the anxiety and remove that from you, so then you could just easily, as God requests us to take thoughts captive and to see his healing. And so, yes, sometimes supplements are necessary. I love the fact that you did not accept the diagnosis. And I'm so glad, because we do not want
Me
those
too.
labels put on us. And I just believe it takes us away from what God's healing is going to do. But many people already have the labels. But I'm saying God can help you recover in many other ways. I want to be careful how I word that, but always seeking him for the answers. So, Heidi, your story is such an encouragement to so many women. And I pray that right now, I pray thousands of women watch this and see what's possible. And we'll put links to the products down below, and you can check out Heidi's Instagram page and learn more about her and her life that she has going on with the boys and her husband there in Missouri. For the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us here today for this very sensitive topic, because sometimes the guys don't get it. I don't know how we can expect them to when we can't even explain it half the time. I just don't feel right. I don't know what's wrong. I just don't feel right. Something's not right. And sometimes that's all we can say. But yet God is still the Jehovah Rapha. He is still the one who heals. And sometimes he allows supplements, and sometimes it's other things that he will bring in to show us the healing process. But it will always include what you said, number 3, is knowing who God is in our life and in the lives of those around us. Thank you again, Heidi, for joining us today. I can't wait for people to check out your Instagram page, learn more about you. We'll put links to everything down below. And until next time, thank you for letting me share with you God's recipe for excellent health. And if you want to learn more, go to thebiblicalnutritionist.com. Or if you want to start in on our courses, go to biblicalnutritionacademy.com. Thanks for watching.